stuff I can dive in. I am a nuclear engineer. Like, this is well within my forte. So you've asked me a lot of fusion stuff, and I love to talk about fusion. But in my undergrad, I was a reactor operator. I mean, I've held fuel rods in my hand and stuff like that.
The stars have aligned. Get Gerrit Bruhaug on here. 75th anniversary of the Trinity nuclear bomb test. My God. I mean, Oppenheimer, destroyer of worlds. I have become the destroyer of podcasts. 7 of my last 8 guests have just bailed. 2 from prominent national laboratories I won't name. Which, I mean, I'm not shitting on anyone. They've all had legitimate reasons. I get it. But my God. I swear, when they cancel in waves, man. Gerrit coming through in the clutch, so...
That's why you got to get graduate students, man. We're a little more flexible, especially those of us who are on vacation.
I was going to say you're probably used to the abuse. Grad students and TAs, man. That's where it's at.
Yeah, you know, we're slightly better treated than we were 50 years ago, but the only difference being is they can no longer kill so many of us.
Yeah, right. I got to get this Stockholm syndrome TAs and
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So,
you know, you get like one dead grad student per research group, and after that,
they start investigating. But you're allotted one from either explosives or, you know, altitude poisoning. You're allowed to kill a couple. They're like kids in the Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. You get a couple of them, and it's like, hey man, crack a couple eggs to make an omelet, dude.
The joke is always that the graduate student's the most worthless person in the lab, because, you know, if you kill an undergrad or hurt an undergrad, like, their parents will get involved. Sure. And the university will crack down. You're a grad student, well, they signed up for it.
They did. They did, yeah. No one had to. At this point, it's like, well, you're the one that decided
you to walk in the room.
Yeah, man. Seriously, man. Jesus, y'all are like...
Anyways.
Yeah, anyways.
So, you want to talk about the bomb?
Anything with the bomb, man. It's all I was...
Yeah, so looking at this document, I can definitely see why someone from Los Alamos or Livermore would not want, or Sandia would not want to really dive into it.
Yeah.
But you're lucky in that I don't have any clearances.
Yeah.
And
well, that's the thing for everyone listening.
I got nothing on me, man. Like,
that's the thing for everyone.
I have
I was gonna say, for everyone listening, I had reached out to Los Alamos, Lawrence Livermore, Sandia, Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And multiple times I had people agree to it. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. You know, scientists that had worked there for decades. And some of them, just for other reasons, couldn't or didn't want to do it. But some were like, yeah, can you field some questions? And I fielded some questions. And they kind of backed off after that. So I was down to just talk about Trinity. But I was like, hey, I'm going to field some questions from people. So I went on Reddit and got some questions that are apparently good.
I'll give you a little advice for dealing with the Q clearance people, the ones with the high level clearances.
Stop poking.
You don't want, because it puts them in an awkward position.
Okay.
And that's the thing. Professionally, it's a bad spot. Like, even though I don't have anything, I'm not going to get into like real technical stuff either, because at some point I would like to have a clearance.
Yeah.
And that looks really bad. You know?
I had someone else say that. Yeah,
you know, a bunch of these are broad, and I'll dive into all that. Yeah. So your very first one is just on the concept of the cassava howitzer, which, for anyone who doesn't know, that came out of the Orion project, which is the idea of tossing a nuke behind a spacecraft right in the blast wave. When you first look at that, when you do the math, you're like, well, man, we're not going to get much energy from that nuke on the spacecraft because it explodes all directions. What they realized is that you can play some tricks, and there's actually a couple different physics tricks that you can do beyond what you might read in Dyson's reports, Freeman Dyson, the guy behind it. But you can make more of the energy going in kind of a cone. And that's, if anyone's got any knowledge of shaped charges, you can maybe start to imagine how that might work. Although for a nuke, it's 6 orders of magnitude more extreme. So with the cassava howitzer, the idea was they're doing this work on the Orion. They figure out how to make it more directed so they can get more energy from the nuke on the spacecraft, which is important because nukes are not cheap. And so the Orion drive has the potential to take us up to incredible speeds. And the best part is we could build it today.
Yeah.
You could start casting the steel tomorrow for that thing. But, treaty issues. But so the military looked at it and went, hey, that's kind of a neat idea. Maybe for like a bunker buster or something, you get this jet of plasma coming off the nuke. And that's all part of a broader concept called I think it's Generation 3 or Type 3 nukes. Anyways, the idea being is that the very first atomic weapons were all fission, and they were big, bulky things. And the idea was just make bomb. The second generation threw fusion into the mix, and those were we were able to make them smaller, way more efficient. And now we went, okay, make bomb big. Let's make bomb huge. Yeah. And you get like Tsar Bomba, you get the Bikini Atoll test. I think the big one for the U.S. was the B-25. We had a nuke that's the most energy-dense device on the planet. It weighed something like 3 tons and had 25 megatons of yield, which is just unbelievable.
That's insane.
So, you do all of that for the second generation of nuclear weapons. And the third generation was this idea that we saw later into the 70s and 80s was, can we do something kind of fancy with them? We get a lot of energy. We can kind of play with the radiation yields. And the most famous of this is, of course, the neutron bomb. Everyone's probably heard of that, where you increase the neutron production of the weapon. And the idea is to make it more, you also hear it called an enhanced radiation weapon. Mm-hmm. The idea is to use the radiation on purpose. There's also stuff like the seeded weapons, where you try to just make like horrible fallout.
Salted bombs.
Salted bombs. I've heard about ideas to make more EMP, make more X-rays, because most of a bomb's yield is actually in X-rays. At least a more fission-based bomb. Fusion gets funky. And then there's the very famous, or maybe not as famous as the neutron bomb, but well-known X-ray laser program out of Livermore, which is another idea of, can we direct it? Kasaba howitzer was also part of this. There's a connected one, I think it was called Prometheus, or started with a P. The idea was to make kind of a nuclear shotgun. Could you have like big chunks of tungsten and just zip those suckers up to speed? So that's where this all gets into. So the thing with the Kasaba howitzer is we do know that there were some, if not tests directly of the concept, there were tests related to the concept. Beyond that, we know nothing. It's heavily classified.
Okay.
The little bit of declassified physics seems to check out, and it would make sense that this has been investigated. Dyson was quite confident it would all work for the Orion drive, so there's no reason that it wouldn't work for some sort of weapon. The big thing being is that there's this idea in everyone's head that a Kasaba howitzer makes like a jet of plasma that could hit the moon or something, and that's not how it works. Oh. It's still very direct. It's very spread. It's like a flashlight. Plasma wants to expand too. The bigger point with this, in my opinion at least, aside from the concept of an Orion, which is just beautiful, or that crazy shotgun thing, is you can imagine for a bunker buster, that's where this gets real key.
Sure.
You have something like Cheyenne Mountain.
Yeah.
You want to bust Cheyenne Mountain, you can always go big. You can just make a bomb so big that you just, cut that mountain out of the earth.
Yeah.
But that's got delivery issues.
Yeah.
Bombs, even with the best fusion weapons that we can design, they're still going to be pretty hefty. You got to get it close. You're going to make a lot of fallout when you carve that mountain out. Got issues. So you make your warhead like a Kasaba howitzer, and we know that there are bunker penetrating nukes, or at least designs for them. The U.S. has talked about it. They actually talked about it, making a new one and using it in Afghanistan during the early part of the 20th century. And you can imagine the thing hits the bunker, it penetrates however far those bombs do, then it goes off with that jet of plasma, and now you're directing a lot at the bunker.
Yeah.
And you might not carve your way all the way to the bunker, but the idea is you're pushing, right? Just like you push on that Orion drive. Bunker's a nice big cavern, and if I push on it with the hand of God, that cavern goes squish. And now I've busted the bunker, and I didn't have to carve a whole mountain out. Yeah. And in fact, because I drove that nuke so deep into the earth before I set it off, there's probably not even any fallout. My troops could walk in the next moment. They could be walking behind that nuke.
Greenpeace.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts there. Your next one's a little more wild.
That's one I had heard a while back.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say no. 100% no. For a couple reasons.
Can you read it for the people listening?
Yeah. So there's apparently some idea out there that the X-37B, which is a robotic baby space shuttle that the Air Force, or I guess now Space Force, flies around. And there's this idea that maybe it's in orbit to collect antiprotons for some sort of antimatter bomb. So a couple of reasons I'll say no on that. We can't store antiprotons very long. CERN is the farthest along on that, and there's no reason to think there's some classified work that's farther, because the only place we even could make antiprotons in the United States was at Fermilab, which is a explicitly non-weapons lab. It is in the charter of the laboratory. They can't do classified work.
Okay.
Fermilab used to make the most antiprotons even in the world. They even beat CERN right now if Fermilab was still using their antiproton ring. They had a particle accelerator that would actually collide protons and antiprotons called the Tevatron. And they had to make all the antiprotons to do that. So CERN is now getting to the point where they can store antiprotons for months, but you're talking about, and I think they're actually storing them as neutral antihydrogen. So you have to also get the positrons or make the positrons. It's a big, messy process, very, very lossy. And they don't store them at high energy density. All of the antiprotons they store, like if you were to set them all off, I don't even think it would warm your cup of coffee.
Oh, damn.
In containers. So then you get into the idea, well, there's concepts for how we could store way higher density. We don't make enough antiprotons to really need high storage density. And it's kind of it's dangerous, right? Like if you were to store a kilo of TNT worth of antiprotons, well, now you have a kilo of TNT worth of energy to deal with.
Yeah.
So maybe you could store it denser. But there's no reason to think the Air Force or Space Force or anyone has that actual technology or is interested, because the other thing is antimatter, sick in science fiction, looks really cool. There's no reason to use it for a bomb compared to nukes.
Yeah.
Nukes are simpler, they're more robust.
Yeah.
They're already so big nothing can survive them.
Yeah.
And most of antimatter's yield is actually going to be in gamma rays. It's going to be in these extremely energetic gamma rays. So it would kind of be like the gamma ray version of a neutron bomb, which has its uses, but you compare that to just like most of what the military wants from nukes and what would be ideal in their mind is if it was just a bomb. Like if you could get rid of the radiation, they would love that.
Yeah.
They would use that shit every day. And an antimatter bomb it's more expensive, it's harder, and you didn't get rid of the radiation. You just changed it. You're like, okay, for neutrons, I'll give you gamma rays.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's still going to make stuff radioactive because they're 200 MeV gamma rays. They're like what comes out of a particle accelerator.
Jesus. Yeah, I've heard it explained. It was like, why would we use? It's like it's so expensive to make antimatter for the same explosion. They're like, it's like putting out a fire using like 300-year-old wine. It's like just use water. Yeah, just use water. Just use the fucking lake water.
In my opinion, the only reason to go after antimatter, aside from the beautiful physics, we have a lot we'd love to understand about antimatter, which is why I'd personally like to see more of it made.
Yeah.
I think it's sad that Fermilab shut down the production line, but I get it. They got other stuff to use that accelerator for, and it's a pain in the ass to deal with. It makes for a very compelling case for space propulsion, but that's like 200 years in the future before we'd ever need that level of energy density or even be able to handle it.
Yeah.
If you start talking about needing hundreds of kilos of antimatter, I don't know how you deal it, because here's the other bad part of the antimatter versus a nuke. A nuke fails safe. You set a nuke off wrong, you don't get any yield. You drop a nuke, nothing happens. You light a nuke on fire, nothing happens. You might spread some radiation, that's about it.
Yeah.
Drop an antimatter storage container, boom.
Blow a continent.
It's nuclear nitroglycerin.
Jesus. All right.
So, I think there's actually a lot of good military reasons to not want antimatter.
Yeah, it's insanely. Yeah, you're right. It's nuke is failsafe. Antimatter, it's like, dog, you breathe wrong.
Yeah. So now your third one is thoughts on the D5 life extension program, and kind of unconnected. Did North Korea actually achieve criticality versus fizzles? So for the life extension program, we got to do it. That's plain and simple. Our nukes are old. Beautiful to think of a world without nuclear weapons, just like it's beautiful to think of a world without guns or knives or mean people.
Yeah, but it ain't real.
But it ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
And we have two options when it comes to nukes right now. Well, we have three, I guess. We can do this life extension program. We can keep funding stockpile stewardship, and we can get really, really good at designing nukes without setting them off. We can just set some off and make sure that they work and design them from there. That is going to be cheaper to do it that way.
I wish they'd do it.
You don't need all of the fancy scientists to figure it all out. You need some weapons scientists, and you need a place to set it off, and that's going to be it. But that has its own political issues, and man, it'd be embarrassing if we went to set one off and it didn't work. Unlikely, but that's a consideration. There's actually there's something to be said for not setting them off and leaving the wonder.
Ooh, yeah. Do they work?
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, the point of a nuclear weapon is the only weapon meant to never be used.
Yeah.
And we should continue to not use them.
Yeah.
Or the third option is to not do life extension, not do anything, and basically have our enemies who are doing the same work. In China, Russia, they're both doing all of these life extension, stockpile stewardship programs. They're building things similar to the NIF and the Z machine and all of the stuff needed. They know how there's no secrets there. They know they have a rough idea of the internals and everything else, especially Russia, because we've done these dismantling programs, and there's no reason to really be worried about that, because if you can build a nuke, you can guess how someone else built a nuke. Mm-hmm. But the thing being is that if they see we're not doing it and they're doing it, they might actually learn something that lets them realize, oh, America's nukes don't work.
Yeah. And it's the whole...
And that's even dumber. That's like having a gun that doesn't do anything. So you point the gun, and then the guy goes, you don't have a working gun, and just beats you to death.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole purpose is that mutual assured destruction is, for all of its insanity, all of its madness, all of its insanity, is that it works. It's the whole purpose of having
it's insane, and it feels counterintuitive.
But it works.
Sadly, most of the modern world is that way. Like, think about modern economics. Modern economics doesn't make any sense, because us on our little scale, we're dealing with households, right? We don't deal with nations worth of money. Yeah. So of course it's going to sound nuts. When you're talking about nations with weapons that can carve a city out of the planet, things are going to be different.
But it works. The whole idea that
it works. That everyone's alive. The big powers don't fight anymore. We can even look at India and Pakistan, who they do have weapons. They did have a war in 2002, and it did not go nuclear. Yeah. And the war de-escalated because both countries realized that if they escalate further, it will go nuclear and everyone there will die.
Yeah, there's some chart. It's some guy from the Manhattan Project. It was in the 80s or 90s. But the thing is, the chart still holds true. If you look at a logarithmic scale of deaths, gross number and percentage of the population from the earliest recorded warfare history, literally Sumeria, through 1945, it rises at a logarithmic rate. It dropped off at 1945, and it's been decreasing every year since then. It works.
Yep.
The idea that everyone's got a shotgun at each other's head, they start. Hey, a well-armed society is a polite society. It's working.
Yeah,
it's not
what's
perfect.
That, Robert Heinlein?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I was hearing it on Rogan. Yeah, or Tony Stark, Iron Man. Dad said the best weapon is the one you never need to fire, but it's true.
Yeah. Which is a nuke.
Yeah, it's a nuke, and it works. So you got to upgrade them.
Yeah, you got to keep them working. We don't have to go, we don't have to go insane. We don't have to be like, ooh, we're going to make super duper uber nukes that are better. We just need to make sure that they keep doing the job, of which most of that problem is actually delivery. The nukes themselves, we just need to make sure we're positive that they still work and that there's nothing funky, like maybe the detonating explosives or decaying or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. The delivery mechanism is the way bigger deal. We need to make sure our missiles are up to date, our bombers, our submarines, all that crap. Because the nuke's worthless if you can't get it somewhere.
Yeah. It's... Man, I wish... God, I would... Is there a piece of lint in my hair? Jesus. God, I wish they would set off a fucking like what were the ones at the top of the Titan 2s that LeMay loved, the 9 megaton ones? I wish they'd set one of those off. God,
dude, that's destabilizes the world if one of the big countries does it.
Yeah, I know. But man, I wish they'd all come together. They would all come together and just set one off in the Pacific. 8K, 240 FPS, just.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it would be beautiful to see them now. Beautiful film and everything. God. Also, the stuff. So there's actually a lot of physics that was done with the weapons, and there's a lot we could learn. There's still a lot we don't understand because they can create such incredible conditions. There's a fun Russian paper I found where they were using them to understand materials under high pressure, and by high pressure I mean like makes the center of the sun look adorable. Dude, they would take just like normal stuff. They'd be like, here's a chunk of quartz.
Yeah, let's see what it, yeah.
But, they'd see what happens. And that's a whole area of study right now where we use things like the Z machine and the National Ignition Facility to try to compress stuff. But nothing beats a nuke.
I know. Dude, I watched a video last night of like, it was like 1970, I think, 71 in Soviet Russia. They put out a natural gas fire. They couldn't
with a weapon.
Yeah, so they literally kind of used like you said, almost like a bunker buster, but they instead of dropping it, they dug it in.
They drilled it. Yeah. That was all part of their plowshare program. So we had the same thing. It was trying to find nuclear explosives, and it's not as dumb of an idea as you initially think, because we can make relatively clean nuclear explosives, and explosives are useful. Explosives have a lot of uses, and so the idea that this uber explosive, this explosive that is just insanely more powerful, would have peaceful uses is very viable. Yeah. The Soviets dug a lake with a nuke. Yeah. They did mining with nukes, and they work really, really well. There's a bunch of peaceful uses you can actually think up, also off Earth. If we ever want to start really going places, Orion's a great option. Ever need to divert an asteroid, nukes, and even mining asteroids. Like you can think about breaking them apart with nuclear weapons, because everything you do in space, there's no reason not to use a nuke there, because space is more radioactive than a nuke. Space is a horrible place.
Yeah.
And you might, mass matters. And so you need to take the most energy dense thing possible. If you had to haul 1 million tons of TNT out to some asteroid to break it apart, you'd never do it.
Yeah, not probably.
But all you got to do is haul this one little device.
Yeah, one little boy. It's dude. It's what was I gonna say? I mean,
you want to talk about the North Korean weapons?
We can talk about anything. I was gonna say plowshare. Yeah, man, you could do.
Plowshare. That's what it was called. Yeah, plowshare program.
Yeah, plowshare could have been awesome, man. Man, I was thinking I thought of this a couple years ago. Like, what if instead of the wall, Trump just built a fucking moat using plowshare across the bottom border? Like, God, I was like, man, he would do it, but it's possible. Man, you use a nuke, dude. You could. There were plans to flood parts of I think Saudi Arabia or Africa. It was to
there was a lot of crazy plans with at one point. There was also plans to dig the Panama Canal out 5 miles wide with nukes.
Dude, it could have been fucking awesome, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff that could have been done. I'm disappointed the U.S. didn't go farther with plowshare, but on the flip side, I don't know. You can see you can also definitely see the problems. We were a little lackadaisical when it came to fallout.
Yeah.
People in Nevada and Utah can speak to that.
Yeah, you do one of them wrong, you get a Chernobyl.
Yeah, kind of. It's its own issue, and it's I don't know. Yeah. It's more complicated, right? That's what sucks. That's the sucky part with everything. Everything like this is that we can talk about on paper what's so beautiful and cool and amazing, but the world's more complicated when it really comes down to it. There's always political considerations. There's tribal considerations. Yeah. There's just a million other things other than what looks nice on paper.
Yeah. I mean, Orion, what an awesome idea for space travel. But Kennedy was disgusted at it because the Joint Chiefs of Staff proposed basically an orbital AC-130. Yeah, an orbital battleship that had the atomic anti-cannons, and it was just going to go at like 300 miles up, and just literally you could call in close air support from orbit with tactical nukes. Kennedy was horrified.
I mean, there were some absolutely wild ideas with Orion, and that probably is part of what got it killed. Is that you could imagine it being proposed in a more peaceful manner. And it moving forward. But there's another issue that people forget about with Orion, is that if we have Orion spacecraft, so let's say you launch it from Jackass Flats, right, which was the plan, or out in the ocean or something, so that the fallout isn't a big deal. It takes like 30 nukes to get up to orbit. Not going to be that big of a deal in terms of effects on the world. But as you get up there, you're going to wipe almost every satellite out.
EMP blasts.
You're going to make the Van Allen belts worse. You're going to create horrible EMPs. There's other considerations other than, hey, I want to do 1% of the speed of light.
Maybe you would construct it in orbit like the ISS.
You got to go far. That's the thing. It's got to be past the Van Allen belts before you're going to not really affect people. So basically, you got to make it on the moon.
Fuck it. Let's do it.
It's an option. They even studied making the Orion out of aluminum, and the moon is full of aluminum and titanium. That's basically all it is. It's just a big ball of aluminum and titanium dust.
Oh, God. There's so many awesome options.
But, now you got to get to the moon. You got to bring a whole factory to the moon, and it's always harder than we want to think, right?
But it's still awesome.
It is awesome, and hopefully, someday we'll be doing that. Or maybe something better. That's where the ideas of using like inertial confinement fusion as a rocket come from. Is basically, it's like you get the benefit of Orion without the problems of Orion. Because the other problem with Orion is that it favors size really heavily. The bigger you make an Orion, the better it is. The bigger the bombs are, the better they are. And sometimes that makes sense. You could imagine making like a colony ship or something, and totally go Orion. But what if you just want to take like 10 people to Mars?
Do you need all of it? It'd be
like, okay, sure, we're gonna make a 20 billion ton asteroid spaceship to take 10 people to Mars. Like, that's insane. Or are we gonna make like a little Orion that's not very efficient? Kind of doesn't make as much sense. They had this idea for an Orion that you could launch with a Saturn V. The Saturn V would loft it most of the way up before it would light the nukes. And that would have been pretty helpful. And in fact, depending where you launch from, you could lessen the problems with satellites and everything like that. But still, all those little Starlink satellites are definitely dead.
I wish they'd launch like an Orion Voyager, like Voyager 2. Just to see.
Oh yeah,
just get it out
that
there.
Would be
Fuck
lit.
It. Make it a global thing. We all get the research. Just see what's out there. Get past Pluto in like a couple weeks. Like, just get that puppy going.
Everyone every weapons country has to give like 10 nukes over to it. We'll call it a disarmament project.
Seriously, dude, that would be awesome. Imagine just zipping past Voyager 2 in like a year, just like
wave.
Just like what's up, bitch? Just fly. Man, I would love to just know what's out there. There's just nothing cooler than just like, sure, we can see it, but like, don't you want to send something out there? Just
and I mean, we've learned a lot from Voyager, and New Horizons is getting out there. Like, New Horizons is just providing amazing data.
The heliopause or the helioshock or whatever the hell it is.
My favorite idea is actually the putting a telescope out. I think it's 1,000 AU, so 1,000 times or 100 times the distance, somewhere between 100 and 1,000 times the distance of the Earth, and you use the sun as a gravitational lens.
Holy shit!
And man, you don't have many options of places you can point to, because it's not like you can move around. But the things you can point to, you could read the fine print on the newspaper that an alien's reading in the morning. Like, it would be spectacular.
That would be so
And
bad.
Otherwise, the beautiful part is the telescope. Because you're making the sun as one of your lenses, the telescope itself doesn't have to be that big. I don't even think you need something like James Webb. I think it's basically you put a Hubble out there and it does the job.
What if we just took something old like Hubble and just fucking... I mean, it's...
The problem is, how do you get it out there?
I was going to say, it's so much easier.
So far, and you need it to stop.
Orion telescope. Actually, fuck it, don't even stop. Just keep going. Have it just always looking...
Then it stops working. It's only at a certain distance does the effect work.
Well, I'm saying don't use the gravitational lens. Just shoot a Hubble out and just aim as far as you can and constantly be going as fast as you can. And I don't know, man. I just want to see it.
Yeah, I mean, and then when you get into going to other solar systems, it's just so far. You know, Ryan, that you're talking 300 years to get to Alpha Centauri.
Yeah. Well, that's why we need dataless.
I think lasers, man. You got to do the laser launch.
Light
you
sail.
Try to do like 20% the speed of light or something, or even more. There's even crazier ideas that'll get you way far. That's where you get antimatter. Yeah. Honestly,
yeah.
You get some of that antimatter, and you really kick the speed up. Use a laser to launch you. Slow down with the antimatter. There's your spaceship.
Yeah, God, it's a little depressing knowing we're not going to see it, but. I don't know. I guess take pleasure in what we see now. Right? Yeah, take pleasure in what we see right now.
We're still living in the future. There's rockets that land now.
There are rockets that land. We're driving around like rovers. We're finding dead rovers with our current rovers on another planet. Like, you know, we're getting back high-res photos of Pluto.
Do you see the new one's going to launch soon? Perseverance goes to Mars in 10 days, I want to say.
Didn't it miss its last window?
Yeah, but the window's huge. It's like a month long.
So 10 days. I need to get some on.
They give themselves a lot of leeway. It was something with stacking, but now, last I heard, it's stacked on the rocket, and so they're going to fuel and check and blah blah blah. But then she goes.
I wonder why SpaceX hasn't launched a rover to Mars. I mean, if Elon's so obsessed with Mars, I feel like they would have.
Can't afford it. Rover to Mars costs $1 billion.
Yeah, that's true.
And landing on Earth is, especially like a Falcon 9 landing, is beautifully impressive.
Yeah.
But it's way easier than landing on Mars.
Yeah, Mars.
The Falcon 9 the stage only gets up to like Mach 8.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And the air does most of the slowing.
Yeah.
You don't get that on Mars.
No, Mars is a shit show.
You slap the atmosphere at like 25 times the speed of sound. You have to do... if you've seen how they're going to land that rover,
I've seen the animations.
It has to use a heat shield, a parachute, and then rockets ignite to land it.
Oh, is that? I know they've used different methods for past rovers. There's the one that's almost like the spherical airbag. There's like a helicopter one. Isn't the new one? Isn't that going to have a helicopter on it, like a little mini drone copter? God, that's
Perseverance, baby. I mean, when people want, I hate when people want to shit talk NASA because we're not. We're not walking on Mars or whatever. Well, you know what? Give them the budget. But for the budget they have,
they're making sure.
We're putting a helicopter on Mars, man.
Yeah. And don't they want to put like a submarine on like
Titan
or Enceladus or whatever?
It's incredible. And that's all been approved. And the best part is this rover, if you actually look up a picture of it, so it's the younger sister of Curiosity, which is there right now. Mm-hmm. This is just like Curiosity, but we've learned. Mm-hmm. So we've made it way better. This sucker is like the size of a Land Rover. It is big. It is way bigger than you think it is.
No, I've seen. What was the last one? The huge one.
Curiosity.
That was Curiosity. So I've seen the pictures of that with scientists, and you're like, that thing's bigger than like an SUV.
Yeah,
they're not these little.
That's what this one is that we're gonna send, and it's such a hilarious flex to me because no other country has actually landed anything on Mars. The USSR did a soft landing, but the thing died immediately upon landing, so we don't know what happened there. But no other country soft land stuff on Mars. They've all failed. And the US is just like, we're going to casually toss like a gigantic robot to Mars powered by plutonium, and it's going to carry a helicopter because why not?
Just plant a little. I really wish they'd plant a little mini American flag, just to do it, just to.
All the rovers have them. Every one of them's got a nice American flag. You know where that thing came from.
Hell yeah! No, I want them to plant one though. I want them to plant one like Apollo.
You got to leave that for the people.
That's true. You got to have that monumental moment. Yeah.
Yeah. That Neil Armstrong.
Yeah. I like
that sucker in the ground.
I like the idea of the helicopter though, because now you're. Because these things, in my mind, I always figured like, you get there and just drive around, like completely forgetting like the gap and like, or the delay and signal. When these things move, I didn't realize just how like pre-planned and everything is, because it's like you can't get caught, you can't flip over, like it's
no one can fix you. You have to watch the wheels. I mean, it's hard.
What's that one that ended up going like 1,000 times longer than they thought it would?
Those were Spirit and Opportunity, the two little solar powered ones. Those were the ones that came in on the airbags, if I remember right.
I remember watching a documentary on those, and like there was like a dust storm and one of the wheels got caught, and I was thinking like, oh yeah, just rev it out of there. But then they showed back at like JPL, they literally got like, they like simulated, they tried to get the sand or the dirt closest to Mars. They like literally used like 3D scans to like recreate the elevation, and then they got like the exact copy of the wheel. And they were literally like, let's see what happens. And it was like, oh, there's really no like, there's no one there to pick it up. It's like, we got to see exactly what will happen here. And kind of almost like Apollo 13. Like, you have to make a CO2 scrubber, and you only have these tools because they don't have anything else, right?
Yeah. And even worse than that, you don't get the flexibility of a human.
Yeah.
You have whatever that robot has.
And that's it. Yeah. Man.
So you could completely miss something, not see something, not be able to move the arm or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know, at least humans have some ability. You know, we're more flexible. That's the only argument I've ever seen that makes sense to me for why we should send humans for exploration, is that we're flexible and we're able to do a lot. Like you want to send a robot to Mars to do like chemistry. So you send one robot. And you want to send one to do geology, you send another robot. You send humans, you can send a human to do a bunch of stuff all at once.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the built-in AI. Like it's and
we're tough.
Yeah.
Like we are arguably much, much tougher than most machines, just because we heal.
Yeah.
And we're like I can bend my fingers and stuff like that.
We're just hyper advanced robots. Me. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Anyways, you want to get back to this list?
Yeah, whatever. Things? Yeah. Well, sorry, I was gonna say with the rovers, the idea of the little helicopter on it though. That's so cool because it's the range of those things. How greatly increased is the range? I mean, they have to be autonomous though, because they can't be like live stream, right? Because the time delay.
Yeah, no, it's. I think they're just going to like hop it like 100 meters or something like that, like the pre-programmed flights.
Okay.
They're also, as I understand it, they're kind of expecting it to fail.
Yeah,
just because
probably. I mean,
they're learning. They're just kind of expecting like it's gonna tip over or get blown by a dust storm or something.
Yeah, but I mean, you gotta do those steps. Like, exactly. This is learning. It was
a pretty last second thing. They only announced that helicopter in like 2017, which that's you think about for NASA planning, like that's really fast.
That's awesome though. I love it. I love it. I love everything about it. Yeah. I forgot. Yeah. Next question.
You
can choose whichever one you want. You don't need to do order. Just choose whatever the fuck you want, dude. I don't care.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'll dive into this next one, though. Real fast, I'll say North Korea definitely has nukes. They work. We're quite confident of that. They probably had some fizzles. Everyone does. But they 100% have nukes. Just the emissions that we've been able to pick up. We have these sniffer planes that go fly around and look. The shock waves we've seen in the ground. They got nukes. They got nice big working nukes, which is not surprising. I mean, America invented the nuclear weapon in 1945, and North Korea is a pretty backwards country, but it's probably more advanced than 1945 America.
I was about to say how long, then I realized, wait, that's 75 years ago this morning.
And on top of that, they get a benefit from a lot of knowledge. Like, we had to invent a lot of stuff. We didn't. Yeah. You know, there's a benefit of knowing something's possible, knowing roughly how it's done.
Yeah.
We didn't have that.
Yeah, we spearheaded it. It's always easier to do it. Like if you, I always think like if you just took like a couple books, a couple like physics books, and just brought those back 200 years, like we would probably get to 2020 technology in a fraction of the time, because so much of it is just trial and error. You just don't know.
And just knowing it's there, knowing to even look for that or understand that, like
versus having to like find out like, oh, okay, there's a proton and a neutron. It's like how long, like how much time did we waste just like trying to figure it out? Like, what is this? What's going on here? And like, oh, it's an empty space. Is it? Oh, there's okay, and it's what is a nuclear pile? Do we even know if this thing's gonna work? And it's like, you're right. Once it's all happened, it's very easy to
It's very straightforward, and a lot of knowledge is out there. Like the nuke, specifically the A-bomb, isn't really kept under control via secrets. There's some secret stuff as I understand it, but most of it is controlling the materials.
Yeah, controlling the fissile material.
It's not that hard to figure out how you make one. Yeah, but it's hard to get the fissile material.
Yeah.
And so that if you're a country like North Korea who just doesn't care, who's just going to go forward and make the fissile material, there's not much we can do to stop it.
Yeah, they have no problem with just throwing human suffering at it until it's finished.
Yeah. So anyways, into the next part, you bring up, the state of nuclear stuff, and we've talked about the weapons, our opinions on MAD and global nuclear peace and whatever. But you talk about the Russian weapon and their little toy missile that they keep slamming into the ocean or whatever the problem is. That nuclear powered missile that hit and they picked up some stuff in.
Hold on, I gotta go to the bathroom. Garrett, keep talking. Are you talking about their equivalent of Pluto?
Yeah. I'm making fun of it.
Oh, okay. We'll keep making fun of it for 30 seconds.
Yeah, so anyways, this thing is a nuclear-powered cruise missile, or at least that's what they're claiming. I mean, it probably works. America had a similar project. And there's been some radiation releases from it, and the Russians are lying about where the radiation's coming from. And it sucks, but there's been a lot of hyperbole in the media about how it's some sort of mini Chernobyl and it's going to cause all these problems, and it's not. It's just not. Chernobyl barely affected people in Europe to begin with, and Chernobyl was a huge reactor that lit on fire and exploded. This thing, the core, just to work as a missile, the core's got to be small, the total fuel loading's got to be small, and you just don't have that much crap you can spread around. On top of that, the Russians are testing it in remote areas. And the big thing to remember with picking up radiation is that you can pick up tiny amounts. So if you...
So Russia's got a Pluto.
Sorry, what?
So Russia's got a Pluto?
They're testing it. That's their claim. I'm just making fun of it because it's kind of a dumb weapon, in my opinion. And it's not some mini Chernobyl when they crash it. To even work as... One, Chernobyl wasn't that big of a deal. That's the first thing to drive home. Two, Chernobyl was a big reactor that lit on fire and then exploded and spread crap everywhere. Just to work as a missile, it's got to be tiny, which means the fuel loading is tiny, which means they can't... There's just not that much crap that can be spread around. Worst case scenario, it can spread as much as a nuclear weapon can, which is not that big of a deal when it's all said and done. And the Russians are testing in a remote area. And the big thing to remember is that we can pick up minuscule amounts of radiation. That the most efficient and sensitive detectors known to man are probably radiation detectors. So when someone says, "Oh, I'm picking up fission fragments from Russia," they could literally be picking up one atom.
Jesus.
We can do that. That's totally doable. So that's why a decade ago after Fukushima, you had all these people talking about picking up Fukushima isotopes off the coast of California. And they're true. One of my professors was doing that. The thing is, they were picking up like 3 atoms in a cubic meter of seawater. That's insane that you can even do that.
I mean, we picked up the Jo-1, the Soviets' first A-bomb in 1949. We picked it up with a sniffer plane off the coast of Alaska.
Yeah,
we picked up the cloud.
It's trivial to pick this stuff up, especially nowadays.
Yeah, and that was 1949.
The other thing I'd say with their weapon, the Russians are kind of boasting about it. The thing being is if they get to work, it'll be an effective weapon. But there's really no benefit over their new ICBMs, and that's the thing that really matters. They have these nice hypersonic ICBMs, or hypersonic glide vehicles that can maneuver. Those already work. They exist. And that's the only thing that matters because America has limited missile defense anyways, which is good. That's good. We want MAD to continue to work. Yeah. Our only missile defense is really against North Korea. And so the Russians, I think, are just doing this almost for internal politics. They're trying to look tough to their people. Like, oh, look, advanced Russian science, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But this doesn't change the calculus of MAD. The Russians launched their nuclear-powered cruise missile. They'll wipe out Miami the same way they would with their, their normal ICBMs or one of their subs.
Yeah, you're not going to get some decapitation sneak attack. Like,
and we're gonna see it. Like, the thing is gonna be detectable.
Yeah,
you could. We just talked about how radiation is pretty easy to pick up. I bet you could use a dime store Geiger counter, and if that thing flew 100 kilometers away, you'd go, "Oh shit, it's over there."
Yeah,
and you go track it down.
We had those satellites back in like the late 60s, early 70s. It was like, what was it, Hotel? And that was
those are for picking up the nuclear flash, though. You're not going to see this
that was
thing
for
with
testing.
Flash, but it's not going to be any work. Realistically, it's no bigger deal than any other nuclear weapon. It's just the Russians trying to look scary and cool.
Yeah. And they also have another one they're planning called Poseidon, which is
that one already exists. That one's actually much easier as far as U.S. intelligence has said, is that it's that big torpedo. It's like a little baby nuclear submarine.
Yeah, but they put a 200 megaton nuke on it, and they're
once again, it's the same thing of
how do you want to How do you want to set off? Yeah, how do you want to set off MAD with a Poseidon or a Satan II? Either way, you're getting hellfire from space on your country.
Like, you're not gonna that Poseidon doesn't affect North Dakota where all our missiles are.
Yeah,
you blew up LA. Cool, we're gonna flatten Moscow.
Yeah. Either way, it's either way. Like, do you want to?
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't change the calculus of the game. It's just now the Russians are spending more money on kind of dumb weapons.
Hey man,
like, sure, have fun with your dumb little nuclear torpedo.
Yeah,
that's expensive as shit.
Yeah, in a country where you're fucking broke. Doesn't LA have a bigger GDP than Russia?
Italy does. That's the one I know, which I think is hilarious. What does Italy even make? Like Ferraris and cheese?
Yeah, and fucking really hot women that are unrealistically thin. But it's Ferraris.
So models, Ferraris, and cheese. That's all of Italy, which apparently is wealthier than Russia.
Yeah, Jesus.
You got a bunch of other stuff in here.
Choose whatever you want, man.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of things to hit on real fast. So you talk about nuclear storage. Are you talking about spent fuel?
Those are questions I've got from Reddit Special Access and Reddit Nuclear. So I don't entirely know what
spent fuel is another thing I could totally talk about.
Sure, let's do it.
But it's not. It has nothing to do with weapons. Spent nuclear fuel is the least important problem to talk about in my opinion, because spent nuclear fuel has never hurt anyone, and it's not gonna hurt anyone, and we already we have all the solutions. Everything with spent nuclear fuel is freaking politics.
Really?
Yeah. So if you look at it, a good example is to look at the nuclear power plant in Washington. They have really nice pictures of where they store their spent fuel. And they have 30 years of providing 1 gigawatt of electricity, which is a ton of energy. And they have all of that on this little tiny square where they've stored their spent fuel. And they're all in casks that can get hit by a train and survive. And they sit on a little concrete pad, and they have a little barbed wire fence. Don't go up and touch them. That's not allowed. And the thing being is, all of those casks are rated for 100 years at least.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of actual solutions. There's things like deep storage. There's deep isolation, which is a really cool thing where they use fracking technology to drill super deep. And then they put the nuclear fuel in these they're able to do it in a tiny area. They talk about storing all of the waste from a power plant in the area of the parking lot of the power plant, but 8 miles down.
Yeah.
So it can't affect anyone.
Yeah.
So, that's an option. Or more realistically, because we only use about 1% of the uranium in the nuclear fuel, recycle it.
Yeah.
We know how to do that. We've known how to do that for years, decades.
Yeah.
The French recycle it.
Yeah.
The Russians kind of recycle it. And the U.S. invented the best nuclear recycling technology in the world. It's out in Idaho National Lab right now, fully functioning at a test facility. We could get that rolling tomorrow, and we don't do it.
I thought you were gonna.
All politics.
I thought you were gonna mention the. Oh shit, Gerrit.
Yep.
I somehow just. Yeah, I don't know how I just left you. Yeah, I thought you were gonna say the best recycling program is depleted uranium rounds.
Oh Jesus, no.
That's how we make use of them, man.
There's advanced reactors that can burn depleted uranium. We know how to do this. We can stick nuclear waste into certain kinds of reactors. They built them in Idaho. They ran them. They ran them for 30 years, made electricity to power Arco, Idaho. It's politics, man. It is dumb ass politics that make that a problem. But the thing is, it's such a minor problem, so tiny. All of the U.S.'s civilian nuclear waste, and I'm not going to talk about weapons waste because weapons waste is. We did some sketchy shit when we were first making the nukes, and we need to clean up Hanford, and we need to clean up stuff in Los Alamos and whatever. But we're going to talk about civilian nuclear waste, which is the thing people always want to bring up. You could take all that waste, you put it on a football field. It only goes about 10 feet high. And we've been making nuclear energy since the 50s.
Yeah, that's insane. Versus
and remember, that's with a reactor that is so shittily inefficient that if it was any other form of technology, we never even would have built it. That's 1% efficiency. We could burn that down to nothing.
Yeah.
And there are reactors, there are designs that you can even burn the waste from the burning of the waste. Like you can just keep burning stuff up until basically, at a certain point you're burning things until you get near iron.
Jesus. Yeah, and it's
we know what to do. That's what frustrates me with this whole discussion on waste. It's not hurting anyone. It's freaking invincible. I dare you to even try to break a waste container.
Yeah.
It is not a proliferation concern. If some terrorist is actually able to steal spent nuclear fuel, so they need to get a huge crane, put it on a giant semi-truck, somehow not get shot wildly while doing that, drive it to the port, put it on a ship, take it to another country with a reprocessing facility, pull out the plutonium, they must be able to process the plutonium because it's worthless for weapons in its current form. You have to use advanced Department of Energy techniques to even process that, have advanced nuclear weapons designs, and then maybe you could make a nuke that worked.
Maybe.
And during all of that, you somehow didn't get shot.
Yeah, hit with a J.
And you have the $5 billion reprocessing facility and the expert nuclear physicists to make that happen. I think you might just make a nuke normally.
Yeah, that's too much plot armor.
A thing to remember is that civilian nuclear power has never made nuclear weapons. When people want nuclear weapons, they build nuclear weapons. They don't build power plants.
Yeah.
Because it's dumb.
Yeah.
Because building the systems needed to breed plutonium is way cheaper. Like a plutonium breeding reactor, we built it at Hanford basically by hand out of scrap. The thing was it's just graphite and uranium stacked until it's big enough.
Yeah.
You don't need, if you try to play the game with a power plant, you make a crappy power plant and a crappy weapons breeder. Just make a power plant or a weapons maker.
Yeah. And all this discussion of spent nuclear fuel, it's it doesn't hold a candle to just one day of one coal-powered power plant. Just look at the waste from that.
Yeah, look at the waste from it.
Look at the
waste even from wind turbines.
Yeah,
and they have more waste.
They do. How do they even have waste?
When they break down, you got to send the blades somewhere, and the blades are very difficult to recycle. And so there's these big landfills essentially in Iowa where they're throwing wind turbine blades.
Jeez.
And so it's if we're going to talk about waste, why are we talking about spent nuclear fuel? The waste it's the only industry that even cares about its waste. Everyone else doesn't give a shit.
Dump it in
they
the
just
ocean.
throw they dump their waste anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's the only one that has 27,000 solutions, including just put it in a parking lot and leave it. That is a legitimate solution.
Yeah, you're right. It's political capital.
What are you going to do? You're going to break open the giant container that can survive getting hit by a train?
Without getting shot? Yeah.
And then if you break it open, so if you actually had bare spent nuclear fuel, and of course, it's got half-lives and stuff, so this isn't always true. But let's say we had some stuff we just put in the container, and then you go, oh man, I'm going to be a bad guy. I'm going to break that sucker open. I'm going to get those fuel rods and do something bad with it.
Yeah.
So you break it open. There's now no longer shielding to protect you. And if you're within, I think it's 10 meters, you're just going to drop dead.
Yeah, there's easier ways to
do it. You have to somehow break it open and then have it in shielding.
Yeah, there's easier ways to do it.
There's a lot easier things to do than try to mess with spent nuclear fuel.
Work smarter, not harder.
Work smart. And I think actually because it's such a lethal endeavor and so difficult, it would almost be good if terrorists were trying it. Because it'd be like, oh, yeah, look, he just died from radiation or all the bullet wounds from the guards.
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me you want to attack the place where we regularly keep, like, Army Rangers?
Yeah.
Sure.
Have at it, bud.
It's like, feel free to try to attack even the National Labs. Los Alamos has a freaking Abrams tank at the entrance to one of their areas.
Really? Jesus.
Have fun.
Yeah. Jesus. Yeah, man. I had a guy on, Kevin Colgan, forever ago. It was like right after I had you on the first time. Yeah, and he works at a nuclear power plant. He's just a power plant operator. And he's like, yeah, man, they have like Department of Homeland Security. They're like, it's like within a mile there are Abrams like ready to roll out if there's a security breach.
You're not, and honestly, I don't even think we need that. Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do to those power plants are tough.
So it's political capital. That's all it is.
You would have to kill everyone there. It's political capital.
Yeah. Well, and it's working. People get hysterical about it.
Yeah, and that is why we are not going to meet our emissions, goals. We're going to drive past 2 degrees C, 3 degrees C.
Yeah.
Global warming, because
we're here for a good time.
Renewables are useful. Don't get me wrong. I am not an anti-renewables guy. They are very useful. The advancements in renewables are great. And personally, I just love solar panels because they're weird. Like, it's just quantum magic. You're like, why does this thing work?
Yeah.
I took a thing, I put it in light, and it made electricity.
Yeah.
Why does that work?
It's some weird black magic. Yeah.
Yeah. I understand how it works. We had to learn about it in class, but man, it's just so fun.
Yeah.
The idea that that's the only thing you can do just doesn't add up. The math isn't there
for solar
and for pure renewables. Like, it's just not going to power the world. The amount of energy we need to generate just to maintain the current world is unbelievable. It's important to remember fossil fuels make something like 85% of primary energy in the world, because there's a lot of energy that isn't electricity. We have to make a lot of heat. We have to power cars. We have to power airplanes. We have to power ships, all of this other stuff. And there are billions of people who want to increase their energy consumption. Yeah. And in my perfect world, they all do. I want everyone to live like an American.
Yeah. We talked about that. Yeah. We talked about that our first episode.
Yeah. And so we have to increase power production, man.
Yeah.
This idea of like, if we're really lucky, maybe we can use dams and wind and solar, and we can get the American electricity grid all renewable. Screw that.
Fuck that.
I want everything clean tomorrow, and I want to start just dropping reactors into Africa. Just like, you get electricity, you get electricity, you get electricity.
Yeah, just fucking turn on the air. I think we said that. We're like,
turn on the AC, baby.
Open the windows, turn on the AC, and that's like the flex, man. That is, don't bring it down. Make it so that it's so cheap that everything can flourish. Yeah,
that's the real goal.
You don't limit the data on like new video platforms where like I'm uploading just to like decentralized, like DTube and BitChute. You're in Vimeo. They're like, okay, like, we're growing, so we got to limit the amount of data you can upload. So you're capped at 500 megabytes a week or something. And it's like, no, the way to go is you got to go to the YouTube on it, man. Just like you bump it up, 1080p, 4K, 8K. It's make it so everyone can upload everything, and it flourishes. Yeah. When you remove that limiting factor, you're right. We need to make it so everyone can. I mean, and that goes back to the fusion argument, but. Yeah, dude.
I mean, fission can do it. That's the thing. I love fusion, but fission is here now.
Yeah.
And we have thousands of years of nuclear fuel available right this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And we know how to get millions, possibly billions. We're not even sure. Because, then you get into this whole thing of like thorium and uranium. Yeah. What are the reserves? How much is even on the planet? Like, it's insane, but we know there's billions of tons of uranium in the ocean, and we know how to extract it. Yeah. Right now, the extraction's about 3 times market value. Uranium's dirt cheap, by the way. Uranium is like, everyone wants to think it's expensive. Uranium's freaking worthless. I don't remember the exact market price, but I think it's trading at something like like $10 a pound or something like that.
Jesus.
$30 a pound. I don't know. Not much. It trades at like the same price as tin.
I had a guy on yesterday, and we were talking about organic mushrooms. He's like, "Yeah, man, they're like $50 a pound in Seattle." Like, yeah, all right, yeah. So
yeah, and it like trades for nothing. And so the thing is, even if you talk about 3 times market price, the cost of fuel, even in our shitty and efficient reactors, isn't very much.
Yeah.
And then if you get into these really advanced reactor designs that burn all their fuel, okay, fine, make the fuel 1,000 times more expensive. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change the cost of the power plant.
No, it's you. Yeah.
And there's billions of tons of this stuff, and if it just comes out of the water, then that means there's no Saudi Arabia of uranium.
Everyone who has access to an ocean.
Yeah. And even then, even in the ground, like another area you can get uranium is out of phosphate mines. So when we mine phosphate for fertilizer, there's all these tailings, right? There's this extra, you know how it goes with mines, right? Like there's stuff you don't want.
Yeah.
When you're extracting the ore.
Keeps,
all of that stuff called tailings, I think it's the right word, it's considered strategic resource government. And then you get into stuff like granite, like freaking granite. You can mine granite and pull uranium out.
Dude, New Hampshire, where I'm from, the granite state. It grows granite. It grows granite.
Yeah, it's like you can do that if you're desperate. You know, as a country, like you have the options, and the thing is, you get so much energy that it doesn't matter that it was hard.
Yeah, it's
like, sure, it's 10 times, 1,000 times harder. You're talking about so much more energy. It just doesn't matter.
As opposed to putting like platforms in the middle of the ocean that you got to fly crews out via helicopter, and they're digging down. It's like 6 miles underwater and then another mile under the ocean floor just to get, and then you're getting fuel
to get oil.
It's like, dude,
and that's before you even get into the environmental impacts, right?
Yeah,
fossil fuels are beautiful, the things they've done for our world, but we got to move past. We're wrecking things. And with renewables, the problem is just they take up a lot of land, and you're dealing with they also take a lot of resources, and you're dealing with this issue of unreliability. There's a lot of other stuff. I think they complement well. The way I like to think about renewables on a grid is the same way that like a hybrid car works. You get your, the point is not that the electric powers your car. The point is that the electric, and even if nuclear is cheap, but if you could implement like 10% solar into the grid or whatever, dude, that's 10% less uranium you gotta buy. Might as well.
Yeah. Well, you said earlier, like it's not that everything's not even electric. So it's the move that like you try to move everything. So like just electric cars, and then once you get more electric,
realistically, not everything can be electric. You're never gonna. In my opinion, you're never going to see an electric plane. It's just not going to happen. Okay. Batteries will never be energy dense enough for that. So we have to make synthetic fuels. We got to make hydrogen. We got to make synthetic methane or synthetic kerosene or whatever. And some people point to biofuels. Well, the problem with biofuels is shitty solar. All a biofuel is doing is it's taking energy from the sun, and then it turns it into a plant, and then we inefficiently turn that plant into fuel. But solar panels are more efficient than photosynthesis in a plant. So it's like, if you're going to make fuel via the sun, maybe you should make it directly.
Yeah.
And then the other thing with biofuels is land use. That's a big thing I'm really big on for environmentalism. And I'm from Montana, big, beautiful state full of wildlife. I want more wildlife. Like, I want more forests. I want more of everything. I do not want to cut land down to grow fuel.
Yeah.
So, after that long rant about energy, how about you pick one more question, and then we'll
wrap it up
after that.
Let me pull it up. I'm gonna pull up the questions. Sorry, I was not prepared to pull up the questions. I feel like a jackass. Why aren't we blah blah blah? How do you I don't know. I guess I'll just come up with one off the top of my head. why? I think we talked about this before. Actually, no, I got a good one. How come we don't make like smaller and smaller nukes? So like, I mean, like get down to like really small. Why wouldn't you? And I know this is a stupid question, but why wouldn't you make a nuke so small that it's like no bigger than like a JDAM explosion? But then you could just put like, let's say they're the size of a grenade. Well, now
you're talking about yield, smaller yield.
Yeah, so you could take 1,000 of these and put them on a B2, and now a B2 could just loiter. You make that thing, give that thing some like nuclear propulsion or something, or solar. That thing can just loiter for years, and just there's all your air support you need because it's just got these little tiny things.
There's there's kind of three issues in there. One, us and Russia or the USSR kind of both agreed that we don't want to go proliferating suitcase nukes or backpack nukes or whatever the idea is. We do have some small ones that can be hand delivered. Stuff like Davy Crockett, it was very small. Same warhead as the backpack nukes. But in general, we don't want to really drive that idea around, because if anything is going to be a risk for abuse, it's that if you lost one of those, right?
Okay.
So there's not a big tactical reason to want a little nuke, and there's a lot of political reason to not want one. The other issue is, and the much bigger issue, is the tyranny of the critical mass. So a nuclear weapon, even the most fusion-heavy nuclear weapon, must be triggered by fission. And fission has a critical mass. Now that's kind of it's not totally a mass thing, because you hear about different critical masses and different masses of material in the nuclear weapon. There's ways to cheat it. You talk about neutron reflecting, you talk about increasing densities of fuel loading, better explosive geometry, all sorts of stuff. But when it gets down to it, you just have to have this minimum amount of fissile fuel, and you have to get this minimum amount of fissile yield if you want to set any fusion off. So that already, fusion weapons are going to go more. So then if you just go for a fission weapon, the minimum amount of yield is going to be set by the amount of fuel and how long you hold it. Now, ways you could lower the yield to try to get to like a fizzle or something, or closer to a fizzle, are basically just less efficient. So then the problem becomes the most expensive part of your weapon is the fissile fuel, and you're burning less and less and less of it. And so if you got this plutonium that's like $10,000 a kilo for the weapons grade stuff, or whatever the price is. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it's really expensive. Then you put 5 kilos in, and you only use 1 gram of it. And now you've spread a bunch of plutonium around that people could pick up. And you made this very, very expensive weapon that isn't all that much smaller in terms of size. It's just smaller in terms of yield, because the minimum size comes down to explosive geometry. The plutonium itself, it's like the size of my fist. The stuff's really dense. But you have to have high explosives to set it off, to push the thing together, to trigger it. And you just limit it, you got to have so many kilos of C4 or whatever. And so realistically, something like the Davy Crockett's about as small as you're ever going to get. But in terms of bang per dollar, the Davy Crockett's like the crappiest weapon out there.
Yeah.
And it's got like some fallout related issues. So there is a whole thing about smaller weapons and spreading them around. And you see that with the US ICBMs. We didn't go for these big Mongo yields for our later versions, because we realized that the way to do it is you pick a good yield that deposits its energy very effectively. Because as you go up in yield, more and more energy just goes to space. So you try to pick a yield that's like the most efficient on the nuke, most efficient on depositing the energy, and then you just pack a bunch of those and they spread out in the ICBM.
Yeah.
And so our ICBMs probably have like, I don't know, 5, 12 warheads, whatever they end up being, to give you more area.
Yeah.
Because the other problem with really big explosions is the Earth is curved. So if you try to make some like Mongo ICBM, you do have the curved Earth issue and like mountains and whatever. Whereas if you have a bunch of warheads, they could be like, hey, let's go to opposite sides of the mountain so no one can hide behind it.
Yeah.
So, it gets back to what we were talking about. Things end up being a little more complicated, a little more, there's more. It's funny how like cost comes into play, right?
Yeah.
Like you think with nukes, sky's the limit. But no, you at a certain point, you can't. The Congress isn't going to let you burn all the plutonium.
Yeah.
You do have to be kind of efficient with it.
Yeah, and when you want 70,000 of them, like you gotta figure it out.
Yeah, you got to be a little better with it.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, man.
Dude. Thank you so much for hopping on, man. It's thank you so much. Had so many people
been
bail.
A pleasure.
Fucking Gerrit, you were episode 100 and your 75th anniversary of Trinity. Gerrit, you are the anniversary man. So thank you, sir. Thank you for answering the questions, man. That was fucking awesome as always.
Welcome.
And
I will see you later.
All right, dude. I'll email you for the next one, man. Peace, buddy.